The hospital room smelled like antiseptic and broken promises. I lay in the narrow bed, staring at my phone while the machines beeped steadily beside me. My back throbbed with that deep, awful ache that had become my constant companion over the past 3 months. The doctor had just left, explaining again that without surgery, the pain would only get worse. Maybe permanent damage. I'd called my mom that morning, voice shaking as I explained the cost. Her text came back an hour later. "Sweetheart, I wish I could help, but money's tight right now." I stared at those words, feeling guilty for even asking. She'd raised me alone. Times were hard for everyone. I was about to put the phone away when Instagram loaded. And there it was. My mother. Standing beside a gleaming white Lexus, keys dangling from her manicured fingers. Her smile was brilliant, carefree. The caption read, "Finally rewarding myself. You only live once." My phone slipped from my hands and clattered onto the blanket. The heart monitor beside me beeped faster, matching my pulse. She lied. She actually lied to me. Let me back up and introduce myself properly. My name is Kayla, and I'm 27 years old. I've been a waitress since I was 18, the kind who works double shifts and knows every regular's order by heart. My mom, Teresa, raised me by herself after my dad left when I was 5. I barely remember him, just a shadow in the doorway and then nothing. Growing up, I thought my mom was strong. She worked in sales, always dressed perfectly, always knew how to charm people. But as I got older, I started noticing things. The way she'd buy a new designer purse, but claim she couldn't afford my field trip. How she'd book a vacation for herself, but tell me college wasn't financially realistic. I learned early that asking for help meant hearing excuses wrapped in sighs. So I stopped asking. I worked through high school, paid for community college classes when I could, and built my life brick by brick. I thought I understood her, that she was just trying to survive in her own way. I didn't realize yet that some people choose objects over their own children. That lesson was still coming. The accident happened on a Tuesday night in March. The diner where I worked was slammed, spring break crowds filling every booth. I'd been on my feet for 9 hours straight, carrying heavy trays back and forth from the kitchen. Around 10 o'clock, someone spilled a drink near the kitchen entrance. I didn't see the puddle. My foot hit the slick floor, and suddenly the world tilted. The tray I was carrying, loaded with plates and glasses, crashed down. I fell backward, my lower back slamming into the edge of a metal prep cart. The pain was instant and blinding. I couldn't breathe. My coworkers rushed over, helping me to a chair while my manager called an ambulance. At the emergency room, they took x-rays and told me it was a severe muscle strain, possibly some disc damage. Rest, ice, physical therapy. It would heal in a few weeks, they said. But weeks passed, and the pain didn't fade. It spread, sharp and constant, making every movement agony. Standing for even an hour left me in tears. And the bills? They kept coming, stacking up like a tower about to collapse. I tried everything to avoid calling my mom. I really did. I picked up extra shifts at the diner, even though every step felt like knives in my spine. I skipped meals to save money. I applied for payment plans and charity care programs. But the pain got worse, not better. 3 months after the accident, my doctor ordered an MRI. The results showed a herniated disc pressing on a nerve. Without surgery, I risked permanent damage. The estimate after insurance was $9,800. I stared at that number like it was written in a foreign language. I made $11 an hour plus tips. My savings account had $340. That night, I sat in my tiny apartment, phone in my trembling hands, and finally called her. Teresa answered on the 3rd ring, her voice bright. "Kayla, what a surprise." I explained everything. The accident, the pain, the surgery I needed. There was a long pause. Then she sighed, that familiar, dramatic sigh. "You really should have been more careful, honey. Accidents like that are usually preventable." My throat closed up. "I know, Mom. I need help." "I understand," she said, but her tone had already shifted to distant. "Let me see what I can do." For 2 weeks after that call, I let myself hope. It felt dangerous, like holding something fragile that could shatter at any moment, but I couldn't help it. Maybe this time would be different. Maybe when it really mattered, my mom would show up for me. She called me 4 days later, her voice warm and reassuring. "Don't worry, honey. We'll figure out the surgery. You just focus on resting and getting better. Everything will work out." I cried when I hung up. Not sad tears, relieved ones. My mom was going to help me. She actually cared. I sent her the hospital estimate, the payment plan options, all the information she needed. Then I waited. Days passed. When I texted asking if she'd received everything, she responded, "Yes, looking into it," with a smiley face emoji. More days. My medical leave from work was ending. The hospital was calling about scheduling. Finally, exactly 2 weeks after our conversation, a text arrived. "Sweetheart, I just can't right now. I'm stretched thin. Maybe look into a medical loan? I'm so sorry." I read it 3 times, forcing myself to smile even though I was alone. "It's okay," I told myself. She tried. At least she tried. I didn't know yet how wrong I was. That Instagram post changed everything. I'd gone to the hospital for a pre-surgery consultation, hoping to figure out financing options. Lying in that examination room, waiting for the doctor, I mindlessly scrolled through my phone. And there it was. My mother. My mother who couldn't afford to help me. Standing beside a brand new white Lexus in a dealership parking lot. Her outfit was expensive. I recognized the designer blouse from her previous posts. Her nails were freshly done, her hair perfectly styled. The car's hood reflected sunlight like a mirror. The caption, "Finally rewarding myself. You only live once." The comments were full of congratulations. Her friends gushing about her hard work and taste. Someone wrote, "You deserve it, Teresa." My vision blurred. Hard work. I'd been working since I was 16. I'd never taken a vacation. I'd never owned anything new. And she deserved a luxury car while I couldn't afford surgery? My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the phone. The nurse knocked and entered, but I barely heard her. Hard work, I whispered to myself, tasting the bitterness of those words. She called this hard work. The rest of that day passed in a fog. I went through the motions, answered the doctor's questions, nodded at his recommendations, scheduled the surgery I still couldn't afford. But inside, something was cracking open. Memories I'd pushed away came flooding back. I was 10, asking for money for a school trip. "I can't afford that right now, Kayla," my mom had said. That same week, she bought a designer handbag and posted photos of it online. I was 14, hoping she'd come to my volleyball game. She didn't show because she'd booked a spa day. "I need self-care too," she'd explained when I got home. I was 17, asking if she could help with my college application fees. "You should have planned better," she told me. 2 months later, she went to Vegas with her boyfriend. Every memory reframed itself with brutal clarity. My mother hadn't struggled. She'd prioritized, and I'd never been the priority. That night, alone in my apartment, I finally let myself feel the full weight of the betrayal. I wasn't just disappointed. I was devastated. And underneath the devastation, something harder was forming. Anger. Not the hot, explosive kind. The cold, quiet kind that changes you. The pain got worse. Without surgery, my body was deteriorating. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, tears streaming down my face, unable to find a position that didn't hurt. Work became impossible. My manager was sympathetic but firm. I couldn't waitress if I couldn't move. My medical leave ended, and with it my paychecks. I applied for disability assistance and was denied. Too young, not disabled enough, they said. My savings dwindled to nothing. Rent was due. I had $17 in my checking account and a refrigerator containing mustard, half a loaf of bread, and wilted lettuce. I'd hit rock bottom, so hard I could feel the impact in my bones. One night, I sat on my apartment floor, sitting in chairs hurt too much, and looked at my mother's Instagram again. She'd posted more photos. Dinner at an expensive restaurant. A weekend trip to the mountains. Her life was a highlight reel of excess while I was rationing food. I wasn't just abandoned, I whispered to my empty apartment. I was traded. She traded me for status. That realization should have broken me completely. Instead, it did something unexpected. It made me angry enough to fight back. I made a decision that night. Sitting on that floor, surrounded by unpaid bills and unanswered questions, I pulled out a notebook. My back screamed in protest, but I ignored it. At the top of the first page, I wrote, "Things I can control." Then I started listing. My body, I could work on healing it, even slowly. My future, I could build something new. My choices, I could refuse to become like her. My worth, I could define it myself, not by her abandonment. The list grew longer. Small things, tangible things. Apply for medical debt assistance programs. Research low-cost surgery options. Find physical therapy clinics that offered payment plans. Look into certification programs I could complete online while recovering. Each item was a tiny act of defiance against the despair trying to swallow me whole. When I finished, I stared at the page. My handwriting was shaky, but the words were solid. Real. Fine. I said out loud, my voice steady for the first time in weeks. She can keep her Lexus and her fake life. I'll build something real. I didn't call her to scream. I didn't comment on her posts. I simply closed that chapter of my life and started writing a new one. The next morning, I started making calls. My voice was hoarse from crying, but I forced myself to sound professional, confident. The third organization I contacted was a medical debt assistance program affiliated with a network of hospitals. The woman on the phone was kind, patient as I explained my situation. "We might be able to help," she said. "Let me transfer you to our financial counselor." 2 hours of paperwork later, I had partial approval. They'd cover 60% of the surgery cost if I could prove financial hardship, which wasn't difficult, and agree to a payment plan for the rest. It wasn't perfect, but it was possible. I cried again, but this time from relief. The counselor also gave me information about a low-cost physical therapy clinic across town. "They do amazing work," she said. "Ask for Dr. Howard. He's helped a lot of people in your situation." That afternoon, I took the bus to the clinic. Sitting was agony, but I gritted my teeth through it. Dr. Howard was a man in his 60s with kind eyes and gentle hands. He listened to my whole story without interrupting. When I finished, he nodded slowly. "I believe in you," he said simply. "People who heal others always start with healing themselves. Let's get you better." The months that followed were the hardest of my life. Physical therapy wasn't like the movies. No inspirational music, no miraculous overnight recovery. It was grueling, painful work. Some days I'd spend an hour doing exercises that made me sweat and cry, only to move a tiny bit better. Dr. Howard pushed me, but gently. "Pain means you're alive," he'd say. "Progress means you're fighting." The surgery happened in July, 4 months after the accident. I went in alone, my mom didn't know about it, and I wanted it that way. When I woke up in recovery, the pain was different. Still there, but purposeful. Healing pain, not damage pain. The real work started after. Months of physical therapy, relearning how to move, how to stand, how to exist in my body without constant agony. There were setbacks. Days when I'd push too hard and end up back in bed sobbing. But there were victories too. The first time I walked without crutches, I stood in the clinic hallway and smiled so wide my face hurt. Dr. Howard clapped. "You did it," he said. "Now let's see what else you can do." That question planted a seed. What else could I do? It started with a young girl at the clinic. She was maybe 14, there for therapy after a soccer injury. I saw her struggling with an exercise, frustration written all over her face. Without thinking, I walked over, still moving carefully but moving, and knelt beside her. "I know it's hard," I said quietly. "But I promise it gets better. You just have to keep going, even when you want to quit." She looked at me, eyes shining with tears. "Really? Really? I was in your exact position 6 months ago. Look at me now." Her face changed. Hope replaced frustration. She finished her exercises. As I watched her leave with her mom, something clicked inside me. This was what I wanted to do. That night, I researched training programs for physical therapist assistants. The certification required about 2 years of schooling, classes I could take at community college. It wouldn't be easy, especially while still recovering, but nothing in my life had been easy. Why should this be different? I applied the next day. When I got my acceptance letter 3 weeks later, I pinned it to my refrigerator. Every time I wanted to quit, I'd look at it and remember. I was building something. Something real, something mine. Something my mother's money could never touch. I juggled everything, classes during the day, physical therapy 3 times a week, and night shifts at a convenience store once I could stand for a few hours again. The work was exhausting, but it felt purposeful. Every test I passed, every assignment I completed, was proof that I was moving forward. My classmates were mostly younger than me, fresh out of high school. They'd complain about their parents not buying them new cars or funding their spring break trips. I'd sit there, silent, thinking about how I'd give anything for a parent who cared at all. But I didn't let bitterness poison me. I used it as fuel. 2 years passed. 2 years of studying late into the night, of practicing techniques on classmates, of learning anatomy and physiology, and how to help people heal. My mom never called during that time. Not once. I saw her Instagram posts occasionally. She'd moved on to a new boyfriend, more expensive dinners, a redesigned living room. Her life continued in its shallow, glossy way. Mine continued too, but differently. Deeper. Real. The day of my graduation ceremony, I had one empty seat beside me where family should have sat. I stared at that empty seat during the opening speech, then made a choice. I stopped staring. I looked forward instead. And when they called my name, I walked across that stage alone, but I walked strong. Dr. Howard offered me a job before I'd even left the graduation venue. "I've been watching you," he said, shaking my hand. "You're exactly what this clinic needs. When can you start?" I started the following Monday. Being on the other side, as the therapist instead of the patient, felt surreal at first. But it also felt right. My first client was a construction worker who'd injured his shoulder. As I guided him through exercises, I saw my own journey reflected in his frustration and determination. "You understand," he said after our session. "Some therapists just do the job. You actually get it." That became my reputation. The therapist who understood. Who'd been there. Who wouldn't let you quit because she'd refused to quit herself. Within 6 months, the clinic's client retention rate increased. People specifically requested me. Dr. Howard pulled me aside one day, smiling. "You're special, Kayla. Don't forget that." His words meant more than he knew. For so long, I'd felt disposable, tossed aside by the one person who should have valued me most. But here, helping others, I finally understood my own worth. It wasn't determined by my mother's choices. It was determined by mine. And I chose to be someone who healed, who helped, who showed up. Everything she wasn't. The call came out of nowhere on a Tuesday afternoon. I was between clients, updating files, when my phone rang. "Mom." I stared at the name for several seconds before answering. "Hello, Kayla. Honey." Her voice was sugary sweet, that tone she used when she wanted something. "I saw your post about your new job. I'm so proud of you." I hadn't posted about my job. I barely use social media anymore. Someone must have tagged me or mentioned it. "Thanks," I said carefully. "How have you been, sweetheart? It's been too long. We should get together soon." My hands started shaking. After 2 years of silence, this was what I got. Casual pleasantries and empty promises? "I'm pretty busy with work," I said. "Oh, of course. My successful daughter." She laughed, that practiced social laugh. "Listen, I wanted to tell you I'm seeing someone new. His name is Brian, and he's wonderful. Maybe we could all have dinner sometime." I closed my eyes. She wanted to show me off now. Now that I'd succeeded despite her abandonment, I was worth acknowledging. "Maybe," I lied. "I'll check my schedule." We talked for another few minutes, surface-level nonsense, before I made an excuse to hang up. Afterward, I sat in the break room, my coffee growing cold. She still didn't get it. Didn't understand what she'd done. And she probably never would. Over the following months, I watched my mother's social media from a distance. She kept posting, always had, always would. Photos of expensive dinners with Brian. A weekend spa retreat. Shopping bags from high-end stores. Her life was a performance for an audience that didn't realize they were watching someone spiritually bankrupt. I used to feel hurt seeing those posts. Now I just felt nothing. Maybe a little pity. She'd spend her whole life chasing things that couldn't love her back, while I was surrounded by people who valued me. My colleagues, my clients, Dr. Howard. Real connections built on mutual respect, not transactions. One post caught my attention, though. She'd written a long caption about overcoming adversity and pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. The comments praised her strength and resilience. I almost laughed. What adversity? What bootstraps? She'd chosen luxury cars over her daughter's health. That wasn't overcoming adversity. That was creating it for someone else. But I didn't comment. Didn't engage. I'd learned that some people are so committed to their own narrative that truth can't penetrate it. Instead, I closed the app and went back to work. I had a client waiting. A teenager recovering from a car accident. Someone who actually needed me. That was worth more than any online performance. The promotion came during my second year at the clinic. Dr. Howard called me into his office on a Friday afternoon. I assumed I'd done something wrong. My stomach dropped as I knocked on his door. "Sit down, Kayla," he said, smiling. "I have a proposition for you." He explained that he was expanding the clinic, opening a second location. He needed someone he trusted to help manage it. "I'd like to promote you to lead physical therapist assistant," he said. "It comes with a significant raise and some administrative responsibilities. But more than that," he paused, his expression serious. "I'd like to offer you a small partnership stake. You've earned it. You've built this place as much as I have." I couldn't speak. A partnership? That meant equity, ownership, a real stake in something successful. I don't know what to say," I stammered. "Say yes," he replied simply. I did. That weekend, I used my first bigger paycheck to buy a used car, nothing fancy, a reliable Honda with good gas mileage. I paid cash for it, no loans, no debt. The freedom that came with it was indescribable. Not because of the car itself, but because of what it represented. Independence. Stability. A future I'd built with my own hands. I thought about my mother's Lexus and realized I felt nothing about it anymore. No jealousy, no anger. She could have her symbols. I had substance. The phone call from my aunt came on a cold November morning. I was having coffee before work when Aunt Patricia's name flashed on my screen. We weren't close, she was my mom's sister, and I'd learned young that Teresa's family usually reflected her values. "Kayla," she said without preamble. "I thought you should know. Your mother's in trouble. Financial trouble." I set down my coffee cup. "What kind of trouble?" "The expensive kind. She's been living beyond her means for years, apparently. Credit cards maxed out, loans she can't pay. Her boyfriend left when he found out. Creditors are calling constantly." Patricia paused. "The bank is foreclosing on her house." I should have felt satisfaction. Karma finally arriving. But instead I felt oddly peaceful. Not happy about her suffering, but not torn up about it either. Just calm. "Are you going to help her?" Patricia asked, her tone suggesting I should. "No," I said quietly. "I'm not. She's your mother, Kayla." "Yes," I agreed. "And when I needed her, she bought a luxury car." Silence on the other end. Then Patricia sighed. "I understand. I'm sorry, honey. For what it's worth, I think she made a lot of mistakes with you." "Thank you for telling me," I said, and meant it. After we hung up, I stared out the window. My mother's carefully constructed life was crumbling, and I felt nothing but a quiet sense of release. I didn't seek out information about my mother's situation, but it found me anyway. Social media is funny that way. Algorithms show you things you never asked to see. Her posts changed. Gone were the restaurant photos and shopping bags. Now it was vague inspirational quotes about tough times and true friends. Then I saw it, her Lexus listed for sale online. "Reluctantly parting with this beauty," the caption read. Life circumstances changing. The comments were sympathetic, but sparse. 2 weeks later, a new post, a photo of an empty driveway with the caption, "When one door closes." People asked what happened. She blamed the repo man, making herself the victim of an unfair system. No mention of overspending or choices. Never her fault. Her boyfriend Brian was gone, erased from her profile like he'd never existed. She started selling jewelry online, designer handbags, expensive shoes. All the things she'd valued more than me, being liquidated piece by piece. I scrolled through these posts silently. Part of me, the daughter part I'd tried so hard to kill, hurt for her. But the stronger part, the woman I'd become, felt only resolution. This was who she was. This was what she'd chosen. And I'd chosen differently. I closed the app and went to work, where people who actually mattered were waiting for me. The text came late one evening while I was making dinner in my small apartment. "Kayla, this is Mom. Can we talk?" I stared at the message, wooden spoon still in my hand. 3 years of silence, and now this. I put down the spoon and called her. She answered immediately, her voice brittle. "Thank you for calling back," she said. "I wasn't sure you would." "What do you need, Mom?" The words came out flat, tired. She launched into a story. Creditors, the lost house, the repo, being essentially homeless and staying with a friend. It all spilled out in a rush, her voice cracking. "And I know I haven't been there for you, Kayla. I know that. But I'm your mother and I just thought." She trailed off. I waited. Finally, she said it. "Your clinic. Maybe you could help me get a job there? Just something in scheduling or reception. I'm good with people, you know that." My heart pounded. This was it. The moment I'd sometimes imagined during my lowest points. Her needing me. Me in a position to help or refuse. I'd thought it would feel triumphant. It didn't. It just felt sad. "Mom," I said slowly. "Do you remember when I needed surgery? When I couldn't afford it?" Silence. "Do you remember the Lexus?" More silence. Then, quietly. "That's not fair." "No," I agreed. "It wasn't." "I'm sorry, Mom," I said, my voice steady. "We're not hiring right now." It wasn't entirely true. We were actually interviewing for a receptionist, but the lie came easily. Because the truth was, I couldn't work with her. Couldn't watch her every day, knowing what she'd chosen over me. Couldn't rebuild a relationship on the shaky foundation of her desperation. "Please, Kayla." Her voice broke. "I have nowhere else to turn. You're doing so well and I just need—" "What you need," I interrupted gently, "isn't a job from me. It's therapy. Real help. Because until you understand why you made the choices you made, nothing will change. She started crying. Real sobs, not the dramatic kind she used to use for sympathy. For a moment, I almost caved. Almost. I can give you the number for a financial counselor, I offered. Someone who helped me when I had nothing. And there's a therapy clinic downtown that works on a sliding scale. But I can't fix this for you, Mom. You have to do that yourself. You're just going to abandon me? The words were sharp, accusing. Like I abandoned you? I asked. The question hung between us. She had no answer. I hope you find help, I said finally. I really do. But we're not hiring. I hung up before she could respond. I thought that would be the end of it. But 3 days later, my receptionist buzzed my office. Kayla? There's a woman here asking for you. She says she's your mother. My stomach dropped. I walked to the waiting room slowly, trying to prepare myself. Teresa stood near the entrance, looking diminished. Her clothes were clean but old, her hair less perfectly styled than usual. No manicure. No designer accessories. She looked ordinary. And small. Mom! I kept my voice professional. What are you doing here? I needed to talk to you in person. Her eyes were red. To explain. To make you understand. This isn't the place. I did what I thought was best, she said, her voice rising. Other people in the waiting room were staring now. I was trying to secure my future, to not be a burden. I thought you'd be fine, that you were strong. I didn't know. You didn't ask, I interrupted quietly. You never asked, Mom. You just assumed and chose what was easier for you. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Tears spilled down her cheeks. For the first time in my life, my mother looked truly broken. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I just felt tired. You did what made you look best, I said. Not what was best. There's a difference. Then I turned and walked back to my office, leaving her standing there. I didn't look back. That evening, I drove home taking the long route, the one that passed by the car dealership on Maple Street. A white Lexus sat in the showroom window, gleaming under fluorescent lights. I slowed down looking at it. Once, that car had represented everything wrong in my life. My mother's priorities laid bare in leather and chrome. But now it was just a car. An expensive object that meant nothing about the person who owned it. I pressed the gas and kept driving. My Honda hummed reliably beneath me. No luxury, no status symbol, just solid transportation that I'd bought with money I'd earned through my own effort. Through sacrifice and rebuilding and refusing to become what broke me. Let her chase symbols, I said out loud, my voice steady in the quiet car. I'll build substance. And I meant it. My whole life, I'd been chasing my mother's approval, trying to understand why I wasn't enough to make her choose me over material things. But driving away from that dealership, I finally understood. It was never about me. Her choices reflected her emptiness, not my value. I was enough. I'd always been enough. And the people in my life now, my colleagues, my clients, the friends I'd made, they all knew it. The months that followed settled into a new rhythm. I mentored young patients, taught a class at the community college for aspiring physical therapist assistants, and helped Dr. Howard open the second clinic location. My life was full in ways I'd never imagined. The apartment I'd been renting, a tiny one-bedroom that had witnessed my worst moments, I finally moved out of. I bought a small condo, nothing fancy, but it was mine. Actually mine, with my name on the deed and a mortgage I could afford. The walls were bare at first. I didn't have much furniture or decoration. But it didn't matter. Every empty room represented potential, not poverty. Space to grow into, not space I couldn't fill. I painted the walls myself, a soft gray blue that reminded me of early morning skies. Hung cheap prints that made me smile. Bought a coffee maker that actually worked properly. Small things, but they were mine. Built with my own hands, my own money, my own choices. Sometimes I'd stand in the middle of my living room and just breathe, marveling at the peace that came with security. With knowing I'd never have to beg for help from someone who'd abandoned me. My mother never contacted me again, after that day at the clinic. I heard through Aunt Patricia that she'd moved to a smaller town about 2 hours away, working retail, and living in a modest apartment. I hoped she'd found some peace. But I didn't reach out. That door had closed and I'd locked it behind me. My 29th birthday fell on a Saturday. I'd planned nothing special, just a quiet day off, maybe a walk, perhaps dinner with some coworkers. But that morning, I woke up feeling restless. Like I needed to mark the occasion somehow, to acknowledge how far I'd come. So I drove. No destination, just open highway and time. Eventually, I found myself heading toward the ocean. 2 hours away, a place I hadn't visited in years. I parked at a quiet beach, walked down to the sand, and stood watching waves crash against the shore. The wind whipped my hair around my face. Salt air filled my lungs. And for the first time in my entire life, I felt completely wholly free. Free from the pain that had nearly destroyed me. Free from the mother who'd chosen luxury over love. Free from the bitterness that could have consumed me. I'd transformed it all into something else. Something better. Strength. Compassion. Purpose. The life I'd built wasn't perfect. I still had debt from the surgery, still drove an old car, still lived modestly. But it was real. Substantial. Mine. I pulled out my phone and looked at the ocean, whispering words that felt like both ending and beginning. She taught me what not to value, and that became my greatest gift. The words drifted away on the wind. I stood there a while longer, then walked back to my car. I had a life to get back to. A good one. A real one. And I'd built it all myself.